Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is the Sustainability Manager of North America with Novalis International, Graham Capobianco, and we're going to get into talking about sustainability. What does that mean? Being green, making sure we take care of Mother Earth, and how does that affect us within this realm of the flooring, tile, and stone trade, right? What are the products doing to the earth? What are the flooring options doing to the earth? How can we better accommodate our clients? Are there ways that we can use products that are more environmentally friendly to children within the home, right? So we're gonna take a look at a lot of these things and see what they come up with. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Floor Academy is here to be your weekly source on taking you from owning a job to owning an asset. All right. I don't think any contractor in this industry should have to live paycheck to paycheck. That's absolutely absurd that happens. I also don't think that you should have something to sell when you're done, right? The value of your business shouldn't be the tools. You should be able to sell something that actually brings value to someone else. They can step in, you have the systems and processes in place, they take over, and they're immediately able to generate more income. And I want to help you build that. And that's why we have these discussions every week. Before we get started, I want to let you know that for over 65 years, Laticrete has been a leading manufacturer of products and systems covering tile and stone installation, masonry veneer installation, resinous and decorative floor finishes, concrete construction chemicals, and concrete restoration. They offer an array of low VOC and sustainable products. Their products contribute to LEED certification, exceed commercial and residential VOC building requirements, and are backed by the most comprehensive warranties in the industry. For more information on Laticrete and the products they offer, visit laticrete.com. Woo! Graham, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it, buddy?
Yeah, like you said, my name's Graham Capobianco. I've been in the flooring industry for 15 years, almost 16 years. My whole family's in it. I'm fifth generation.
Wow.
So both my dad and my sister are in the industry, tons of cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. My dad and my sister and I are some of the only members of my family that left retail, left the carpet store and went into commercial, which is mostly what I've done for most of my career. I've been in on the commercial side, mostly in the technical field. So working on troubleshooting, claims, job walkthroughs, that kind of stuff. But I've pretty much always, my dad is a big green guy. So sustainability is something that I worked for but the first job I had in the industry was working for my dad. And he made sure that I had a understanding of LEED and a lot of the sustainability initiatives that started in the mid 2000s. And it's kind of followed me my whole career. And now I'm the sustainability manager for Novalis. So yeah, even though I haven't worked in sustainability, I've always worked with it. Mm-hmm. I've worked with other sustainability managers. I've dealt with product certifications a lot. I've dealt with helping contractors understand product certifications so that they get the right ones for their projects. So it's something that I've always touched everywhere I've gone. So it really it makes sense that it's the field that I'm covering right now. So.
Okay. I'm very fifth generation, huh? That is impressive. Yeah. I guess once you get sucked in, you can't get out, huh?
I mean, I tried. I think my sister actually, my sister works for Lobovacal, and as does one of my good friends from high school. But she tried too, and I used to live outside of Charlotte in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and I got her out of New York. We were originally from New York. I got her out of New York, moved down there, and one day my friend Amanda that worked for Lobovacal was like, oh, we really need another customer service person. And I said, my sister needs a different job. She was working at Harris Teeter. I was like, she needs a different job. We got to get her something else. And then, yeah, so I think my sister's been doing it for 7 years now.
Too
So,
funny. Too funny.
and my dad's a sales rep for Spartan Surfaces, which is a huge commercial sales group on the East Coast and Midwest and South a little bit too. So,
Okay. And then somebody in the family owns a flooring store, apparently.
several, yeah. It used to be as many as 9. Now it's only 2. But yeah, there's Fred's Carpet, Northport, Long Island, New York. And then there's Glen Floors and Glen Cove, Long Island, New York. Those are the last 2 retail stores in my family, as far as I know. So,
Very cool. Lots of history. Any installers, or has everyone kind of been stuck on that retail sales side?
oh no, yeah, yeah. My cousin Bobby is an installer. My youngest brother worked for him for a while. That was his first job. He's a carpenter now, but he started and my brother Lucas actually lives out in Denver, and he started as a carpenter, and now he's a wood flooring sand and finish and
Okay.
installer. So yeah, I'm sure there's some more that I'm forgetting. Those are just the 3
Hmm.
that I can think of. But yeah, a lot of what's funny is I know nothing about carpet, but most of, like a lot of carpet, and I know everyone that I'm related to knows how to install carpet and has had to do it at one point or another. I used to rip up carpet for my grandpa's store in the summers when I was in high school. So
Okay.
he'd send me and my cousin. We'd just go rip it all up, throw it out the window, and then move on to the next one.
Nice. Nice. And let's throw Andy McWilliams under the bus. So he set this up because you guys are partners in work over there. And what do you want to say about him? You know,
Oh
we
yeah,
could
I
say
mean,
all the mean things.
I consider him a friend. I won't say anything mean for now. No,
Aw.
I was talking to another colleague that I work with, and I told him, I said, you know what, like. I said, Andy's probably one of the only people I work with right now that I would still be friends with if I left the company or if he left the company. So he's a good dude.
Man, you're so
And
nice.
I've learned a lot from him, just like what, because uh, as much as worked in technical, I didn't I'm just smart. Not to toot my own horn, but like I am now, but when I started, I wasn't necessarily
Hmm. Hmm.
skilled. Um, I just understood the products and I understood, you know, I just remembered stuff
Yeah.
basically. It was a very, very good
No.
memory. So it helped me with technical and it helped me in that field. But watching Andy, even just like there's just really little things that I remember he and I worked on a trade show installation together. And at one point I was just standing, just watching him because there was all these little things I was watching, like, oh wow, yeah, that makes a better cut if you do it that way. And because we had it was like a bizarre pattern. Our marketing managers come up with some really interesting booth designs,
He
and
is,
they
yeah.
look really cool when they're done, but they're very they're very challenging on the install.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
just watching Andy like navigate that, I learned a lot from him. But and I know he feels the same way. Um, but
Yeah, he had
but
nothing
yeah,
but good things to say about you. He was like, "You got to interview my buddy. You got to interview him." And I was like, "All right." I'm always looking for episodes, so I'm always down. But no, he's great. I love being able to call him and get advice and hey, what about this or that? And then he's like, "Oh, Kyle, man, I don't even know what to do with you." So it's me that should get thrown under the bus. But he's a great resource, man. He's a good guy. But
yeah,
we can
very
give
good
him a
guy.
hard time. So all right, let's the audience here, they're waiting for sustainability. So let's start with the big one, okay? We'll because this is where we're at. LVP is horrible for the environment. It's plastic. It's going to kill the world. Tell me
That
otherwise. Like
that's a
that's I mean that's what everybody says, right? We're just producing thousands and thousands of feet of plastic at this point, and then everyone's going to rip it up and throw it in the dump. So it's going to poison the world. And then there's, I constantly get asked, like, is this okay for my kids to crawl around on? Is it going to poison them? Like, walk me through how this is not that, like, is it a horrible product? I don't know. Tell me, right? Is it horrible? Is it okay? Is it Could we be better at it? Like, what are we doing with all this luxury vinyl plank, luxury vinyl tile we got going on?
Well, first I want to say that vinyl as a product in general, I think is very misunderstood. I think and look, I don't use I try to avoid using single-use plastics myself. Um, there's I try to reduce the amount of plastic things that I use. There's sometimes where I personally feel guilty about using some plastic. So I'm very conscious on a personal level when it comes to my use of plastic. But I think you have to consider there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're talking about vinyl flooring. And one of the first things is longevity. How long vinyl lasts. It's a very durable material. So
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's part of the reason why people love vinyl. It's inexpensive and it lasts a long time. Um, I mean, one of the first vinyl flooring products, other than sheet vinyl, VAT. There's VAT under. I'm in my basement right now. There's VAT under the vinyl I have under here, and it's mostly fine. I just don't like looking at it. You know, how many? I'm sure we've all been on VAT or VCT floors that have been down for hundreds of years. I mean, vinyl is a really, really resilient product. So there's a lot of concerns about how it's manufactured. It is a petroleum derivative. So it is a derivative of a fossil fuel, of a finite resource.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and I think that those concerns are valid. But what makes vinyl, other than its durability, what makes vinyl really unique is it is extremely easy to recycle. I know that we don't do enough of it as a society when it comes to single-use plastics like polyethylene, PET, polypropylene, PP. There's lots of different types of plastic that unfortunately don't get used enough, but vinyl flooring is unique because it doesn't necessarily have a ton of plastic in it. But it's very easy to reuse, and it most commonly gets reused as a filler, actually, in other products. And it's a valuable filler because it has a little bit of PVC in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it can turn into other plastic products. And why manufacturers of other plastic products like it as a filler is because they can use less PVC, and that's actually a good thing because it PVC is the byproduct of petroleum. Most of what else is in vinyl is limestone. Um, there's very little actual PVC in the material.
Well,
The overwhelming majority, especially in the SPC click products that are on the
mm-hmm.
market, they are 70 to 90% limestone or calcium. Like it's it's mostly dirt. The slightest bit of it is PVC.
Okay.
And that if we basically like when it gets recycled into another product, the let's just take one of the most common uses for recycled LVT is car mats or garden hoses. Um, and the manufacturers of car mats and garden hoses like to use LVT as a filler because it is mostly limestone. So they're already going to use that anyway, but then there's a bit of PVC in it and they can use less PVC. And believe it or not, PVC, polyvinyl chloride, that is the most expensive part of vinyl flooring. That's the vinyl part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's the most expensive part. So the less PVC you use, you keep your costs down. But then also, if you're able to limit the amount of PVC you put in the new product, so in the new car mat, um, that's less PVC that's being extracted. That's less, there's less carbon emissions related to the manufacturing of it, to the processing of it. So it's actually a good thing. It lowers the carbon footprint, if you will, of the product by using recycled LVT. Um, so that's one of the best things about vinyl is just how easy it is to recycle. And
Okay.
there's even some groups that are there's groups in Europe especially that have been able to figure out a way to actually extract PVC from materials to actually pull the PVC out and then be able to reuse the PVC as raw PVC. And that's another good thing is that, it limits the amount of PVC that is manufactured or processed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so there's definitely some pluses to vinyl. And it's not the most sustainable product on the market, but one of the big things is easy to recycle. But the other topic that you brought up was consumer safety,
Yeah.
safety of the end user and children especially.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
and
everyone's always, well, is it going to leach some chemical into my child as they're crawling around? I don't remember what it is. I know that there's certain products are made a certain way and they have, chemicals in them that people are worried about. I don't remember what it's called though.
well, and some of that comes from, there were some studies that were done in the early 2000s about VOCs, and that's really like when we think about consumer safety,
Mm-hmm.
volatile organic compounds are one of the first things that come up. Um, Zero VOC, low VOC, etc. Um, and in the early 2000s, there was a study that was done in California um, that found that classrooms, especially, well, it was like a split study. Not only were they looking at it was focused on formaldehyde emissions. And now, not only were they looking at formaldehyde emissions in public schools, but they were also looking at what level of toxicity or what's the critical limit for adults and for children of formaldehyde emissions. At what point does formaldehyde start to have negative health effects?
Mm-hmm.
And what they discovered was children were twice as susceptible to formaldehyde emissions as adults. And then they were analyzing the VOC emissions, especially formaldehyde, in public schools in California. So the critical limit for children, for adults, is about 32 micrograms per meters cube. For children, it's 15.8. Or I'm sorry. Yeah. So normal levels out. So one thing to keep in mind, formaldehyde is a natural chemical. It's in all wood. If you walk through the forest, you're breathing in formaldehyde, but it's an acceptable level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what they found in this study is that public schools have as high as 121 micrograms per meter cube of formaldehyde emissions and other VOCs
Jeez.
in the space. Yeah, 10 times what they determined was a safe level for children. And that was really to me, and sustainability is not new, and it's definitely product safety and thinking about better products in general, especially
Mm-hmm.
in building products. It's been around since the 80s, and the US is actually as far ahead as Europe is. A lot of the early developments in terms of sustainability and volatile organic compounds came from the US, but um, that's really where it became about children, because children are more susceptible to volatile organic compounds than adults. Um, and to fast forward a little bit, um, I, I want to say it's about the early 2010s when it came out that phthalates, which are plasticizer used in
Yeah.
plastics, are also not very safe for children, and they're in a lot of children's toys. And a lot of people said, "Wait a minute, this vinyl flooring, does it have phthalates in it?" They're orthophthalates, or specifically the phthalates that are bad. And then all of a sudden, it was like, "Yep, they do. Every vinyl product had orthophthalates in it." At that point, and then
Okay.
then became the process of removing that. So, but anyway,
So, are there still manufacturers manufacturing the flooring with that in it, or has everybody cut that out?
no,
Okay.
yeah, it's been actually the Resilient Floor Covering Institute (RFCI) has been going back and forth with Washington State because Washington State is trying to do two things at the same time. They're trying to encourage recycling, and they're trying to outlaw phthalates, more or less, orthophthalates. And it's an interesting predicament that the vinyl flooring is in, because vinyl, a flexible LVT is very easy to recycle, and loose lay tile as well, very easy to recycle. Um, but if it was made, probably 2014 or earlier, there's a chance that it had, especially if it was, 20 years old or more, there's a good chance it has orthophthalates in it.
Okay.
Now we're in this catch 22
So they don't want to
where
recycle it if
we
it
don't
has
want to
that. Yeah.
recycle it because it has, the bad that, it has phthalates that are known to, have hazardous or negative health effects on humans. Um, but we also want to be able to recycle this product that is relatively easy to recycle. So it's a tricky, that's a tricky thing. And the other thing too is that I found out recently that like there are still not in the flooring industry, um, because of how much awareness there is about phthalates. That's one question that I get a lot is like, do you have proof that your product doesn't have phthalates in it?
Okay.
Um, so and I would say consumers are aware of that now, especially when there was all that pushback about children's toys and phthalates. Um, Consumers are educated in that, and our retail partners, we will get that question: are there phthalates in your flooring?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's a tricky situation because, um, and honestly there has not been a solution yet, and I think even the state of Washington is I think that's a moving target trying to figure out, how to take advantage of the fact that vinyl is very easy to recycle while trying to avoid some of the chemicals it was made with that have
Mm-hmm.
adverse
Mm-hmm.
health effects in humans
Yeah.
and the environment.
So as we continue to, it's still technically a newer product, right? It's been around for a while, but that carpet's been around longer, wood's been around longer, stone's been around longer. So it's evolving, we're learning, but it is getting safer. And so if anyone has questions, like obviously your company has a large enough presence that they've hired somebody to be able to answer all of these questions and be in charge of it. So I'm assuming that, like you said, I believe you said already, most manufacturers are going to have somebody that if I have some type of sustainability or health question, like I can call and I'm going to be able to get somebody that can answer this for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Or like, like for your industry, from your perspective, or if they're calling um, one of our retail partners,
Mm-hmm.
or one of our retail customer service people, they will usually get in touch with me and say, "Hey, customers got this question, or homeowner has this
Yeah.
question." So, and I will say that, because of, um, the growth of, sustainability in general, and the, increasing awareness in consumers about some of these topics, chemical safety, transparency, circularity. The average consumer is way more informed about a lot of these issues than they were 10, 15 years ago. So,
Yes.
we will get, we will get questions through our retail partners that, frankly, like up until 10 years ago, you probably only ever heard on the commercial side. So it's
Okay.
definitely, consumers are definitely becoming more informed, especially as the younger generations, Gen Z, millennials, they are way more concerned about, their health and safety, and they're way more concerned about the environment than previous generations. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely becoming, a more common concern, to the point where some companies have huge sustainability departments just to, monitor all this stuff, track it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So you've also said that it's easy to go and recycle LVP or LVT, whatever you want to call it, right? But
Right.
I'm going to tell you from my perspective as a contractor, it ain't easy. I don't know where to take it here locally within the Phoenix market. Like it goes to the dump. I actually just did a tear out of a bunch of like floating engineered hardwood that was, tongue and groove and only glued on the tongue and groove and then floated. And the client was like, is any of that recyclable? And I was like, nope, just going to go fill the dump, right? Because where do I take it? Plus, that's an extra trip. So before we got started, we were kind of talking about this. And so I'm interested in, if it's so easily recyclable, then how do we make it easy for a contractor to recycle it? Like, what are these steps going to have to be? Because honestly, the easiest thing for me is to go to the dumpster, go to the dump, and just toss it out. There's an extra step in there, unless there's a dedicated location that I can just take it to. It's probably not going to happen for the majority of people. And these homes are now being built, or even flipped houses are being flipped, right? So somebody comes in, they pick up a house, the flipper throws in the most garbage, inexpensive flooring they can find, and somebody buys it and they're like, this is ugly. So it's been down for 3 months, and out it goes into the trash, and something new goes down. We're horribly wasteful in this country.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this and make it easy to take care of our environments?
That's the $1 million question, Kyle.
Solve it for me. You'll be rich. Don't worry.
We're trying. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of us in the industry that are trying, because it's, especially if we just isolate flexible LVT, that is very easy to recycle. And when I say easy, what I mean is that there are manufacturers that will buy it from you. And they will granulate it, and they will turn it into another product. It gets a second life as something else. In my experience for LVT, the two most common things it'll turn into is vinyl car mats and vinyl garden hoses.
Okay.
So those are the two things. And usually if I'm sending material out to be recycled, that's usually, I always check, and lately it's only been one of those two things. So it's easy. There are people that find it as a desirable raw material because, like we were saying earlier, Kyle, LVT is mostly dirt. It is mostly limestone or calcium carbonate or something along those lines. So when you look at the standards for LVT, which falls under ASTM F1700, not to get really nerdy, but the core layer of the LVT has to have at least 30 to 33% PVC, and then the wear layer has to have 90%, but the wear layer is 0.5 millimeters or less. It's a very thin.
Yes.
So most of the product we call it dirt. It's mostly dirt. So the people that recycle it, they use it as a filler. But it's a high value filler because it has PVC in it, and they can use less PVC in their finished product by using this filler. And PVC is the most expensive part of vinyl. It is the most expensive of all the raw materials. So when you talk about like how much actually goes into it. So yeah, it keeps their costs down, but also it lowers the amount of virgin PVC that ends up getting used. So, which is an overall good thing for the planet. But getting it to the manufacturers that can easily use it is the problem. There's no recycling infrastructure. Like you were saying, Kyle, like there's nowhere for you to go and take the LVT that you rip out. That's easily accessible. And generally speaking, even for us, if I want to recycle material, I have to have a full truckload for it to be financially viable. Because if I have to ship it LTL from wherever it is, it's not financially viable.
Yeah.
Now we can pull it in, especially if it's local. Our plant is in the Dalton area. If it's in the Dalton area, we can pull it into we have a storage location just for material that's waiting to be recycled. And then once we get to a full truckload, it comes and gets picked up and turns into something else. But for someone like you, Kyle, or anybody, any contractor that is doing light commercial, single family, residential, you're not going to have enough and you're not going to have, like you were saying earlier, you're not going to have the storage facilities to house a truckload worth of vinyl to have it come picked up, and
Yeah.
there's nowhere for you to go and drop it off. Um, so it's something that the resilient flooring industry in general is aware of and trying to work on, especially since there has been some infrastructure for carpet. So a lot of us are seeing, well, the carpet industry did it. We can do it too. We
Hmm.
just have to kind of get there. Um, so I'm going to step outside of flooring for a minute and talk about a pilot that the Vinyl Institute worked on in Ohio with the vinyl siding industry.
Okay.
And the Ohio EPA was involved. They got a grant. It was a huge collaborative effort, but basically they created these locations where vinyl siders could go drop off vinyl siding, whether it's trimmings from a project or maybe they pulled down old material. They can drop it off in these locations, and um, the Ohio EPA was involved with it, and the material would get picked up and would be recycled. And there's lots of vinyl manufacturers in Ohio, actually,
Huh.
like wear layer manufacturer stuff, or in that general area, I should
Okay.
say, um, between Pennsylvania and Ohio. Um, so that's another thing that resilient flooring industry is kind of looking at as like, oh wow, that's a novel idea. Like having a central location where somebody could drop off their scrap from the job site or the floor they just ripped up. And then when there was enough of it, it would, for vinyl siding, they just had a dumpster. And once the dumpster was full, they would pick it
Hmm.
up and put a new dumpster in. Um, that's obviously vinyl siding is way bigger. Like they're bigger pieces
Yes.
than vinyl. So, you cuttings from a vinyl siding job, probably a lot more of it, but still, um, just a theory that we have at Novalis internally is, what if we worked with a retail partner and had some sort of collection program where someone like you, Kyle, like if you get your flooring from a retailer, let's say that retailer has some place for you to dump your old flooring, and now you don't have to take it to the dump. So now
Hmm.
you don't have
Hmm.
the cost, you don't have the expense of having to take it to the dump. Plus, there is that, if we're thinking about marketing, there you can tell the homeowner, hey, I'm going to recycle this flooring. And we
Yeah.
talked about, younger generations, they care about recycling. They care, like, if it's almost like a value added proposition, right?
Oh, I agree.
Like, and you can even build that into your, I guess the way to incentivize it on the contractor side is you can build that into your marketing. Yeah, we're going to bring this is going to be recycled into,
Uh,
and it's going to get turned into a new
yes.
material. So, but
Yes.
it's creating that infrastructure is the challenge, because the other issue is contamination. And I don't mean like other chemicals, I mean like nails,
Hmm. Hmm.
wood, quarter round,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
contractors throwing stuff they shouldn't in the recycling location. And then
Correct.
now you have to have somebody sort it. So there's lots of it seems really easy, especially since it's relatively easy for manufacturers that recycle vinyl. Once they get it, it's no problem for them to recycle, but getting it there is a challenge because it has to be just the flooring. We can't send them everything that comes from the
Yes.
job
Yeah. Yeah.
site. So does that mean it has to come to a central location and be sorted? Now there's an expense, because now you have to, first of all, you need a location to do that. You have to transport it there. You have to pay somebody to sort it. So there's it's one of those things where it seems really easy, but when you get down into the granular details of how to make it happen, it is very complicated. But there are still, I mean, I'm involved in a group within RFCI that's trying to um, research and collaborate on creating some sort of, even if it's just a pilot program, sort of like what the Vinyl Institute did in Ohio,
Okay.
just a pilot program, even within Dalton, since most flooring manufacturers are in that area anyway. Let's just take maybe the state of Georgia, and we'll just, consolidate vinyl there, and let's like learn through that
Hmm.
process, and
Hmm.
let's see like what it would take. And um we've even talked about partnering with somebody that makes car mats in that area, you know, and
Okay.
maybe we can use their location to granulate it, and then we can store it somewhere where, because one of the other things to keep in mind is that PVC is the most expensive part of it. If we use less PVC in our products, then our costs are able to go down. Plus we could potentially be incorporating post-consumer recycled materials into our products, which that is truly creating a circular economy. And that's Kyle. That's kind of what you're talking about is because traditionally the like economy we've been in a linear economy, which is take, make, waste. We
Yes.
extract the raw material, we make something, when we're done with it we throw it in the garbage, and we know that's not sustainable for so many reasons: landfill accumulation, contamination, pollution. There's so many reasons why it's just not a feasible economy, and there's lots of initiatives to try to transition to a circular economy, which is where you try to reuse or recycle as much as you possibly can, and you prioritize that over everything. And then whatever waste you have, there's always going to be waste, but it's much less.
Yeah.
um, and being able to take the rip ups that you talked about, the homeowner the 3-year-old floor that's otherwise fine, but you have to rip it out and you can't reuse it.
Yes.
At least it could be recycled and turned into another product, and that saves raw materials because there's less raw materials that have to be extracted. It saves costs for the contractor because now they don't have to pay for disposal. Um, and it limits carbon emissions too. It's a lot less processing. It's a lot less transportation now, you know. So um, that's the goal, is to get to a lot of manufacturers are trying to get to a circular economy because if nothing else, it makes financial sense, because the less we have to pay for raw materials, better off we are.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the more we can pass that savings on to our consumers as well. So even just from a financial perspective, it makes sense. But
Okay.
um, that's what a lot of the world is trying to get to. But you know, just talking about this situation with recycling, it's complicated, and there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be created to support that, and
Okay.
that's the challenge. That's the challenge for all of us
But
as a world.
yeah, but it's being looked into. So it's something that's being figured out because we understand that this isn't the most efficient way to use these materials, and so we're trying to fix it. I'm going to interrupt this real quick, Graham. I gotta do a little deal for the sponsors, and then I have one more question about that, and then we'll kind of move on here. It's time to make your plans to travel to Las Vegas with me to hit the show floor at the International Surface event. Our sponsor, Tice, has provided me an incredible offer for you listeners. You can now register for a free exhibits pass with the code Kyle, that's KYLE, for those of you who can't spell my name. Registration is open online at www.intlsurfaceevent.com/register. It's all happening in Las Vegas, the 31st of January through the 2nd of February, 2023. Please don't miss our special podcast episode this December, which will give you the inside scoop on what's happening at the event. Homeowner tenure is at an 8-year low, with the average length of ownership being 6.31 years. Man, I've been in my house 14, so I don't know about all that, but I believe the numbers, to be honest. During ongoing times of building material supply constraints, does a 25-year or lifetime warranty on your materials mean anything anymore? John's Manville Go Board offers a limited 10-year manufacturer warranty on all its products and a list of approved alternative products covered under our warranty. Don't hold up your project because you can't piece together a full system. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. Graham, my question for you would be, if we're looking into recycling and there's no programs around yet, okay, what kind of company in my local area could I call that would maybe be interested in the product. So I finish an install and I've got 3 boxes full of scrap LVP. Is there somebody that I could call that would maybe be a manufacturer in my area that'd be like, yeah, man, I'd love that?
That's a really good question, and probably not. Yeah, just I mean, most flooring manufacturers and vinyl manufacturers are on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
There's some manufacturers that make wear layers in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And most of the flooring manufacturers are going to be in Georgia, whether LaGrange, Calhoun, Dalton. There's some stuff in North Carolina, like the Cary area, some other things, but for the most part, it's all concentrated in Georgia. But there are especially now as demand for recycled materials has increased and from a variety of different angles. There are brokers that are able to find people that will buy goods to recycle, buy LVT to recycle all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with a broker that I recently had some material I had to recycle. It was a truckload worth of material that had to be recycled in California, and they were able to find somebody in Mexico that would buy it.
Okay.
I had some material in Canada, and since it wasn't in the US, it was somebody in South America that actually took the material. So
Wow.
yeah, will it get recycled within Arizona? Probably not. But will somebody in Mexico, which is not very far away,
Mm-hmm.
would
Mm-hmm.
somebody in Mexico be willing to buy it? Sure. I think really what it comes down to is um, the transportation costs are big, especially now. Transportation costs are crazy. So that's the key, and having enough that it makes transporting it viable. And that's a tricky thing for small contractors, or when it comes to recycling, is having enough to make it financially viable for those that want to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why coming up with a way to coming up with the infrastructure to have a central location where you can drop off what little you have is really crucial, because nobody's going to buy the 300 square feet that you just ripped out of
Yeah,
Susie
yeah,
Homemaker's house. They're not going to buy it. And it might cost you because they might say, you ship it to me, I'll take it. I'm
yeah,
not going to
yeah,
pay
yeah.
to pick it up, but if you ship it to me, I'll take it. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's not, unfortunately, no, in most cases, there's not somebody that's going to be willing to pick it up. But that's why we need to, kind of create some sort of infrastructure, especially with, um, you know, there are some in the industry that are hoping that retailers have, every publicly traded company, but especially retailers, large retail, big box stores, big box retail stores. Um, they have to come up with a sustainability report every year, and in every single one of them, circularity, trying to move towards a circular economy. They have stated goals. Most of retailers have those stated goals in their sustainability reports, and one great way to get there would be to use these big box stores to, gather. And there's usually, I mean, and one of the good things you talk about being in Arizona and just
Mm-hmm.
being in remote locations in general. One great thing about big box stores is they're everywhere.
Yes.
um, I try to avoid naming names, but Floor and Decor, Home Depot, Lowe's. I've been to, where it is, how to
Correct.
get there. You probably buy things from there from time to time. Um, but even down to maybe like some of the bigger chain distributors, flooring supply distributors, like
Mm-hmm.
RFS or uh, Gallagher or sorry, PFS. That's what I'm thinking. PFS, Professional Flooring Supply. Some of the other bigger Fishman.
Yep.
There's tons of distributors that they may have. They have the space where they could have a truck a trailer dumped in their parking lot that they fill with LVT, and then when it's full, somebody comes and picks it up, they get a new trailer. That's
Yeah.
feasible for a retailer. That's not going to be feasible for someone like you. So, no offense.
No, well, no, you're 100% correct. I can barely store my tools at my place. So, no, I don't have somewhere to store another trailer and fill it with plastic. So, no, I was just wondering, if there was any way to, can I do a quick Google search and find someone that's recycling plastic in my area, and maybe I get
There
lucky.
is the Vinyl Institute does have a list on their website of recycling vendors.
Okay.
They're all over the country, and you can literally type in your zip code, and it'll give you somebody in your general area, and they add to that list every year. So
Okay.
that's that. It's the recycling directory on the Vinyl Institute's website, vinylinfo.org. So yeah, there are like you can look up locations in North America that recycle, and you can contact them, whether they're receptive or not. And even actually, if you go to the recycling locator on the Vinyl Institute's website, there's a bunch of different options, not just vinyl flooring, but I'm looking at it right now. Flexible post-industrial PVC, electrical conduit, resilient flooring is obviously on here, but vinyl resins, wall covering. There's all kinds of stuff that could potentially be recycled.
Okay.
Because it's all if it's got PVC in it, it's easy to recycle for the most part because it can be granulated back into a raw material and then reused. So,
Well,
but
there you
that's
go,
one place you
folks.
can go.
Okay. Go visit that website, see if there's something close to you. Stop putting it in the dumps. I like that. I want to get outside of plastic a little bit because you do have information in other areas. So, what are we looking for in products that we want to use within a home? Right. I've had questions of like, is this going to is this going to affect my asthma? Is it, just the VOCs, is it going to be stinky, right? Like you think of like old oil based finishes for wood floors, and they'll just, it cures and it stinks for 2 weeks and doesn't go away, right? I went and this was years and years ago, what, probably 30 something years ago. Stayed with my uncle, and he just finished one of the rooms, and whatever glue he used for the carpet, man, I'll tell you what, I slept real well because all you could smell was the VOCs from the carpet. So that's probably why I'm no good these days. It
The
was
good stuff.
yeah. So, but like you've said, the homeowners are super concerned and they're more conscious of what's affecting them and what's in their environment. So, what do we need to be aware of as contractors or retailers in this space? And when we're evaluating products, like what are we looking for so that we can make sure our end users are getting the best products for them?
Well, that's a good question, Kyle. And I mean, that's where product certifications really come into play. They're a way of independently verifying that what the manufacturer of whatever product it is, glue, finish, flooring products, a way of independently verifying that they're doing what they say they're doing. And there's various different certifications. I mean, you brought up before the show, Floor Score, which is one of
Mm-hmm.
the most well-known VOC certifications out there. But that's just one. Uh, there are VOC certifications all over the world, and Floor Score isn't even the most stringent. There's ones that test for more chemicals and have a lower limit. So, but that's really a great starting point and something I've worked with contractors over the years. I'm more on the commercial side, but still, is my customer is concerned with this. Um, how can I tell them that your product, whatever it is okay? Or how
Mm-hmm.
do I make them feel better about it? So independent third party certifications are a great way to, the way I look at it is it's a way for a consumer to make an educated decision. because now they can review the data and they can decide whether they want to use that product or not. So when we talk about certifications, there's three main categories. So VOCs is one of them, and that's
Okay.
volatile organic compounds. A volatile organic compound is basically a chemical that has a low boiling point, which means it releases into the air really easily. And obviously you inhale that, or your child inhales that, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And if you inhale too much, it can be carcinogenic, could be an endocrine disruptor, harmful health impacts. It's not good generally. Um, so but there's lots of different certifications, and not it's not very clear which is which or whether one is better than the other. I would say that's a great time to contact a sustainability manager of the manufacturer. But the important thing to keep in mind is that not every certification is the same. So for example, if someone has Floor Score and someone has Green Guard Gold, they technically are both VOC certificates, but Green Guard Gold tests for more chemicals and has a lower overall limit than Floor Score. So if a product has
Okay.
Green Guard Gold, it's going to be better than Floor Score because it's held to a higher standard. So that's VOCs in a nutshell. That's having a product that has an independent, and actually for adhesives, there's CRI Green Label Plus. That's a VOC certification for adhesives. But Fluoroscore is also applies to adhesives as well. So um, Green Guard Gold is just for flooring products. But anyway,
Okay.
so there's VOCs, but then another thing is transparency, meaning actually disclosing the chemicals that are in your product. Um, and more customers are asking very specific questions about what's in products. It's not just VOCs anymore, it's what's actually in it, not what's coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that there's lots of, like, as we learn more about human health, there's people that could have sensitivities to certain chemicals. We actually had somebody through our retail customer service team had a question about a specific group of chemicals, because the homeowner had specific allergies. And they asked if we had any of those chemicals in them. So transparency in terms of ingredient disclosure is becoming a lot more popular, a lot
Interesting.
more common. And there are independent certifications for that as well. The two main ones are declare labels, which look very similar to a food label. And they're brief, and they basically tell you everything that's in the product. They also give you end of life options, like is it recyclable, how long will it last,
Okay.
and it'll identify hazardous chemicals as well. And they actually get a different color. So if it's a chemical on a red list or a hazard list or a chemical of concern list, it'll be highlighted on that label. So it's easy to read. And then there's health product declarations, which is a similar thing, but they're not as flashy in terms of their appearance, but same thing. It discloses all the ingredients that are in the product, in the finished product. Um, Everything over 0.1% by weight. So it's not every single tiny little chemical, but it's
Mm-hmm.
basically all the chemicals that could actually affect you, that could actually um, cause an issue, are disclosed in there.
Okay. Well,
Adhesive manufacturers generally don't always want it. That's proprietary information, so it's hard for adhesive manufacturers to want to disclose that. But a lot of flooring brands now have declare labels or HPDs, and I will email those to consumers all the time when they're asking about whether specific chemicals are in our products. I give that to them and say,
mm-hmm.
here's our declare label and our HPD. And I mean, I will guide them through it. It's not like, here you go, throw it at them. Yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
this makes
yeah,
sense to you. It doesn't make sense to me. No, but so if they have specific questions, I'll tell them. But yeah, I mean, we are sending those to consumers way more than we ever have, because consumers want to know. They want to know
yeah.
what's in their
Interesting.
products.
So, with that, right? I can understand products that are made in the U.S. having more stringent, like tolerances, right? Just we're generally more concerned, but a lot of products in the flooring industry come from Southeast Asia, and there's
Right.
the standards there are nowhere near what they would be if it was manufactured in America. Now, granted, you're saying that there's this test or that test or this certification and that certification. They kind of they're going to have to end up meeting it, but how many products are going out the door, whether it's flooring or some kind of adhesive or part of a tool from some knockoff company in Southeast Asia that's just making it on the shelves, right? I mean, there was years ago, like all the cars were made with lead, right? And the kids are like sucking on the cars in their mouth and getting lead poisoning. So what do we need to be aware of when we're looking at products we're selling that may not have any certification standards behind it, right? So if it doesn't have anything, should we just not even consider that? And because I have a small retail space and I do carry products, and I'm pretty sure everything has some kind of certification score behind it, whether it's the most stringent or not. But like, is that something I should be aware of? Of like, this has no certifications, just nix it out of there?
I mean, I would
Okay.
personally. I mean, well, I'm the not to toot my own horn here, but I'm the subcommittee chair of F6.8, ASTM F6.8, in the ASTM Resilient Flooring Committee, and that's all flooring specifications. And for like most of my career, what I've told people, and I tell architects and designers, and even consumers, is to a certain standpoint, or even contractors, is this is a standard that tells us how, like, the minimum criteria for how our products should be made and what
Mm-hmm.
the quality level should be. This is your protection from us. Because if our products don't meet this standard, then it's not a quality product, and also like should not be sold commercially. But also, like, if a product doesn't meet that standard, then it's not, then you could make the case that's not being marketed correctly. You could make that could be a potential legal issue. But these like specifications are specifically designed, and even the third party certifications are specifically designed to help people make informed decisions and also create like a minimum level of quality or safety or transparency, so that everybody can make informed buying decisions. I really firmly believe that in that, and that's how I was raised too. I was raised in this industry to don't sell. My dad always said, don't sell someone something they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have what they want, tell them where they can get it. Don't try and sell them something else. And I feel the same way, as like, give people as much information as you can about your product and let them make an informed decision.
Yes.
You should be transparent in that. So yeah, I mean, if you have a product that doesn't, and there are some certifications out there that the Assure certification is a great one for rigid core flooring, because not only is a certification that covers VOCs, it also covers the ASTM standards. So it makes sure that the product meets the minimum, like it has to pass all of the tests within ASTM F3261, which is a standard for rigid core. So it has to pass that. Plus, it has to pass VOCs. Plus, it has to go through a phthalate test. We talked about orthophthalates.
Yep.
Has to be proven to have no orthophthalates in it, and it has to go through a heavy metal test to make sure that there's no heavy metals in it. So that's a really great standard for just across the board, like not just sustainability, also quality, and safety. So, but I mean that you can, as somebody that has to go through those audits every year, which, like, I'll say this, like, there's lots of certifications out there and they probably seem like they're like really ubiquitous and easy to get. They're not. A lot of paperwork and time goes into maintaining those certificates. They're not easy to do. Products have to get retested all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, sometimes some weird things happen and products don't pass. Sometimes it's within within the range, like within the, but anyway, it's a lot of work maintaining those certificates. It's like a big chunk of my time is spent just dealing with audits. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that it's not just a stamp. Like it's not like you just send your product in and get tested and that's it. A lot of these standards will actually audit your physical facility. They will come to and that's Floor Score is known for this because Kyle, you bring up a good point about there was a lot of concern, especially about vinyl products coming from Asia and about their quality.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the company that's applying for this Floor Score certificate actually making the product? That's another thing is especially in the early days of LVT, there weren't very many actual manufacturers, but there were a lot of people selling it in the US. They were just exporters. So,
Yeah.
Is this company actually manufacturing the product? So Floor Score actually audits your physical facility. They actually come and walk through your whole production. They make sure that what is being made there is actually what's going in the box. And this is in Asia too. This is not just in the US. Mm-hmm. So if a product is Floor Score certified, they had to go through an in-person audit. It's not just that it is tested for VOC emissions as well, but the in-person audit is part of it. So yeah, I mean, these certifications, especially if you've never gone through it before, you might think that it's just like a rubber stamp that just gets put on your product. You just pay a bunch of money and you get it. A lot more goes into it than that. And a lot of these standards are not, nowadays we it's almost like cost of doing business. You're expected to have these certifications, especially if you sell your products commercially. But it's a great way of differentiating between like a quality manufacturer and someone that doesn't, or a lot of times too is sometimes people will sell off goods. They're not A grade or first quality materials. They're B grade or C grade materials that they're selling over here. The company that's selling that, they're not going through testing the products, or they're not going through these certification processes. So yeah. I mean, that's sort of certifications are your protection from bad actors in manufacturing.
So don't just go finding the person that's advertising in one of the Facebook groups I'm in or LinkedIn groups saying that they can get me really great flooring super cheap out of some mom and pop vinyl manufacturer. That's what you're saying? Like I should, because either then I'm going to have to pay to have it certified and send somebody over there, and then who knows what kind of mess they're going to find. But find myself a reputable manufacturer that maybe already provides the fact that they have this certification in place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the bare minimum that they've done the testing, that they've had independent testing done on their products to confirm that, even just from a quality standpoint, that they pass the ASTM specification for the product. I mean, that's a bare minimum. Like it has to at least conform to that, because for those, if you haven't read one, what's in the certification is making sure the floor is flat. And here's the test that you do to put it through stress to make sure it's flat, making sure it's dimensionally stable, making sure that the print film will resist UV exposure, making sure that the print film will withstand heat exposure, making sure that the wear layer is the thickness that they say it is, making sure that the product is the width and the length that they say it is. It's not just, a lot goes into those tests of making sure that what's in the box is what is a quality product that's going to click together and perform and last for a long time.
Yes. So. Well, and Graham, this goes with, look, this isn't just a plastic vinyl plank thing. This is every product you buy from these manufacturers. I hate it. I hate this in the industry, and I hate that this exists. Oh, it's the manufacturer's fault. Man, do you have any idea how much money these companies are spending on testing and product development and just getting it out the door? You didn't read the instructions, dude, or ma'am, or dudette, whatever you want to be, right? Like, you probably screwed up. I know for a fact that most failures are installation related. It's generally not a manufacturer error, and when it is, they will generally step up. Generally, there are some shady companies out there. We won't name them. But there's too much money on your end to be putting out products that don't work. Why would you do that? It's a bad business decision. Like it does.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
Stop blaming them. Read the instructions. Find something that is made of, quality components and use it, folks, and then go get educated on it. This is why this show exists. Is you're most likely here because you're willing to be a person that gets educated and wants to learn and grow. And you probably have successful installations. I've been doing this 20 years. Dude, do you know how much the products have changed in 20 years?
Well, here's another thing to keep in mind is that the ASTM standards that all products, and this is not just vinyl, F06 is resilient flooring. So I have rubber, I have stair treads, I have wall base, I have cork. Mm-hmm. So sheet vinyl, PVC free stuff, everything, all commercial products, resilient flooring products come through my subcommittee, and it's everything has a standard. And I tell contractors all the time, like, it's the ASTM membership is cheap, and you get if you sign up for the volume that has all the F06 standards in it, you get all the standards for free. The thing to keep in mind is the standards are renewed every 5 years. Every 5 years, sometimes it's like, no, we're not going to change anything. It's fine. But a lot of times little things change every 5 years. Mm-hmm. So like you said, Kyle, like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Yeah, the products have probably changed. And also the standards have probably changed. So there's things that, for better or for worse, they may get looser, but a lot of times, like, more things are added. And to one of your earlier points, Kyle, the standards are added because a lot of times resilient manufacturers, the ones that are investing in a lot of this testing and R&D, saying, hey, we need to make this standard tighter because this particular criteria is way too loose, and you could have like installation issues because of how, like, let's take dimensional stability. And I'm not saying that this is one that's happened before, but hey, we need to make the parameters for dimensional stability tighter because, like, if a product's allowed to move this much, it could potentially cause problems in larger installations.
Yeah.
Something like that. So a lot of times they're trying to continually improve them to make them better for you, because the way I look at the standards is it's a consumer or a contractor's protection from bad manufacturing.
Yes. Well, and you can get on that. You can get on those committees, right? So the other complaint is, it's always it's the manufacturers that are determining it. Okay, you can get on the committee, go volunteer. You can be on it, and then you get a say. There's not enough contractors on these committees, therefore we're not represented well. You want to make a difference? Well, go get involved.
I'll say this. There are way more general, like in just my subcommittee, and every subcommittee in F06 is this way. There are way more general interest people than producers in every committee. We're outnumbered in every single one. And we only get one vote. So like we could send 5 people from Novalis to the meeting. We only get one vote per company. Okay. So we actually, the general interest, so like adhesive manufacturers, retailers, inspectors, like there's way more of them, and contractors. There's contractors that are ASTM members. There's way more of them than there are manufacturers. I'm
just saying I know there's not a lot of contractors. Like,
no, there aren't.
There's far less contractors than anything else. So it's sad. Yep. Like, and then they're out to get us. No, you're not involved. Go make the difference. Be the difference you want to see, folks. Like, you have to step up and go do the work. You can't complaining from behind your keyboard, complaining in person isn't going to do anything. Now, am I a member? No, but I'm also the guy sitting here saying, go read the instructions. And I can tell you that I've had very few problems because I've read all the instructions. So it's worked out fairly well for me. Or I call and I get help. That's why they have the technical lines. That's why you have reps you can call, right? Like, it's hard to screw up when you're constantly seeking that information. But am I human? Sure. I'm sure something's going to get me one day.
Hey, same
It's
thing with
okay.
manufacturers. I mean, I've been handling product claims for 10 years. I've seen several times where it was a legit manufacturing defect and been
Hmm.
like, yeah, you know what? Like I tested it for this standard and it failed. It's not dimensionally stable or 100% right. We're going to replace it.
Yeah.
That's another thing is that those standards, we use them too because we check like if somebody, like you said, like somebody's complaining, you got somebody on a job, say, oh, this product's defective. Okay, well, we have a test for that specific problem. Like dimensional stability is a big one. Oh, my product is gapping.
Yeah.
And that's like universal. That's not just vinyl. Like that's like, okay,
Correct.
if it's gapping, that means if it's gapping because it's a product issue, that means it's moving too much. Let's run a dimensional stability test on it in an independent lab and let's see if it's moving too much. Oh, it's not. Okay, here's all the other issues that could have caused it. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yes.
we use it all the time to get out of claims, but I also tell contractors like you can also get these tests done. Most of them are pretty cheap. Dimensional stability, especially, is a cheap test. It's less than $100. Um, so you can find a lab near you, or you can send it to a lab in Dalton, where a lot of the manufacturers are going to use them, and they're going to use that same lab. And you can have the material. I've advised contractors that were it was not my material, but they were just calling me because they probably felt like I would give them an honest answer. And I said, here's a test you need to run.
Hmm.
Here's the standard that it's in. And here's a couple labs that you can call and you just ship it out and they'll test it and they'll give you a test report. I mean,
Right on.
there's, I mean, and a lot of the times, a lot of these tests are inexpensive because the labs that do them, they do them all day, every day, hundreds of them,
Hmm.
so it's dimensional stability, especially. So that's the other thing is that if you know the standard, then you know the test methods that the contractors are going to use, or I'm sorry, that the manufacturers are going to use when there is an issue. So you could even get ahead of the game and say, oh, well, let me see if this is really an issue. Do I really need to tie up a bunch of my time in a claim or, you know?
Yeah. 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 No, that'd be great. Graham, is there anything that we didn't hit on that maybe we should have hit on for a couple minutes here?
Um, I mean, the one thing, one of the things I would say is that sustainability is probably, excuse me, sustainability field in general is like rapidly evolving, and it's heavily tied to regulations. A lot of times, especially like certifications are developed to help prove that products comply with regulations. But
Okay.
there's lots of new regulations coming out. You've got the Buy Clean California Act that was passed next year. Buy Clean Colorado Act is coming out, and this might not necessarily affect retail contractors as much as commercial, but there's usually always some crossover. And I would say that like there's lots of, especially in public buildings, there's lots of new regulations coming out. So contact the sustainability manager of the manufacturer. They're there to help you. We help consumers all the time. We also help contractors all the time.
Hmm.
We're here to help make your life easier, and help you get jobs, basically. And some of what I do is literally just helping contractors through the paperwork. Hey, I've got a bid on this job and I have no idea, like I don't know what I'm looking at. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Or they sent me this spreadsheet and can you tell me how your product applies? Um, so yeah, I would say like it's confusing and it's heady and it's constantly shifting, but that's what sustainability managers are there for. That's why a lot of the major manufacturers have invested in sustainability departments. It's not just to help them check all the boxes, it's also to help customers navigate the red tape because,
Hmm.
it's getting more and more complicated in building construction in general because we want to make products better and we want to make buildings better and we want to be better, and I think that's great, but it's hard to know everything and it's hard to
It is.
understand all of this stuff, so definitely like lean on manufacturers.
Well, you guys
Sustainability.
have the resources, right? You have the bigger, deeper pockets, and so use the resources that are available to you. Stop thinking you have to solve everything on your own, and just make the phone call. It makes I have great relationships with reps from many companies, and it's because it's easier for me to make the phone call and get an answer in 30 seconds than it is to go and spend hours trying to figure it out. These guys wouldn't get bids on time on these commercial projects if they had to sort this stuff out themselves. It's not worth it,
Yep.
man. They can call someone like you, and in an hour or two, I'm sure it's all figured out between a couple of emails, a couple of phone calls, and bickety bam, they're on their way.
A lot of times they're getting a spreadsheet from the builder or the architect, and they're saying, fill this out for the product. And it's like, just send it to us. We'll fill it out for you. You got to fill in the price and your name and stuff, but like, we'll check all the boxes for you. It's a lot to know. And really you should be focusing on, the installation part. That's your expertise. Let us handle everything else.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to thank you for joining me and your time, your expertise, knowledge, and sharing it with the audience. I think that's going to do it for us this week, folks. You can check out flooracademypod.com. Use the links. Go to your favorite listening app. Make sure you subscribe. You can go to the shop, pick up a new hoodie. It's that time of year. You're cold. You need a hoodie. The new one says, profit is not a dirty word, and it's not. You should be making profit. I want you to make profit. It's awesome. There's a bunch of different color options. You can get it in a t-shirt if you want. Go to patreon.com/Floor Academy. You can help support the show over there. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping this content to continue to get produced. Thank you to all of the sponsors for what they do to help this content get out to all of you. And once again, thank you, Graham, for joining me. That'll do it for us this week, and we'll catch you next time.